Hello and welcome to this guide to getting your Proven Defender title. I've made this guide for new Guardian Druids, so you don't have to play perfectly or even have much experience in order to pass this challenge. Picking the right talents can have a massive impact on the difficulty of this fight, trivialising waves which would otherwise be a bit of a handful. For much of this fight, you'll be thrashing like an insomniac Dave Mustaine, so Blood Frenzy is great and it's also really simple to use. Ursol's Vortex is wonderful for kiting and really shines on two of the tougher waves. I've used Feral Affinity for the speed. It really helped with kiting and sidestepping the Conqueror's shockwave. I think I only got hit once, which is still kind of embarrassing. Mass Entanglement trivialises the two hardest waves. You need this in your life, guys, you really do. Galactic Guardian is a nice talent for rage generation on the AoE waves, although this row is largely down to your discretion. I've gone with Guardian of Elune in this tier, but I suspect that Earth Warden is also a really good pick for this. Pulverize is obviously the best choice in the last row, because 9 is better than 6. You should be able to keep Pulverize up pretty much all of the time, even if you're a fairly inexperienced player like myself. You might want to use a weak aura to help with this. The Proving Ground scales with your eye level, so you can't outgear this challenge, you can only outplay it. That said, certain Azerite traits are particularly useful for this challenge. Typically you'll want to go with the same sort of loadout as you'd use for Mythic Plus, so talents like Twisted Claws, Bonded Souls, Crystalline Carapace, Resounding Protection, Gemhide, Laird Main particularly, and Impassive Visage are all excellent for this fight. While the Proving Grounds do scale with your eye level, this is not to say that certain slots don't seem to have a disproportionate effect on the difficulty of the challenge. In particular, the system seems to privilege the eye level of your weapon slot quite considerably. In this challenge I've used a 340 weapon, which was the best that I could get my paws on because I play a resto main. This stands in stark contrast to my overall item level of 384, so I suspect that the relatively low weapon actually made this challenge a lot easier. Using the right consumables can really take the edge off this fight. I've been using the Battle-Scarred Augment rune for the agility, and the Flask of the Currents for the same reason. My choice of food was the Galley Banquet, which gives you agility, but it's fairly cheap as well. I've been using the War Scroll of Fortitude, which increases my hit points. You can use the War Scroll of Battle Shouts to increase your attack power if you want, but your damage contribution is much less than your healer's. The War Scroll of Intellect doesn't appear to affect the healer's damage or healing, so I wouldn't bother using that. The Proving Grounds consists of a sequence of 10 waves, which then repeat indefinitely, getting harder each time. I've started this challenge at wave 40, but you only need to reach wave 30 to get your title. The first wave is nice and easy. You'll fight a large illusory Windguard who hits hard and has a knockback threat reset, and a large illusory Ripper who doesn't really do much of anything. The only mechanic that you need to be mindful of is the Windguard's knockback. You simply taunt him when he does it. Beyond that, this wave is tank and spank, with your healer providing most of the damage. You might notice that I'm using weak auras to keep track of my Pulverize and Iron Fur uptime. Pulverize provides a massive 9% damage reduction, so it's really important to keep this up. As you can see, I'm keeping my Pulverize and my Iron Fur up by just doing my standard rotation. Nice and easy.
Four, three, two, one.
Wave 2 consists of a big pack of illusory foragers. Their melee attacks apply a stacking dot debuff, which you need to drop by kiting. This is actually very easy to do with the Guardian toolkit. When the illusory banana tosser appears, simply hit Stampeding Roar, pick up the tosser, and then kite the whole pack through Ursol's Vortex. Voila, you've reset the debuff, and by the time the pack catch up, they'll either be very nearly dead or very actually dead. The banana tossers will toss bananas in an AoE, so you need to tank them away from the healer. Other than that, they're pretty easy. We finished wave 2 well in advance of the timer, so I'm going to give the healer a hug. Hugs are very important.
3, 2, 1.
Wave 3 consists of 2 illusory rippers who don't have any special mechanics, and 2 illusory flame casters. The casters leave flame puddles on the floor. Anyone who stands in the fire takes a stacking increase to damage taken. Naturally, you want to trick the mobs into standing in the fire if you can. This can be difficult as they'll sometimes path behind you. Fortunately, it's totally optional. On this wave, I really shrewded the positioning, but it didn't matter at all. The really key thing is that you don't stand in the fire. I found that your healer can easily tank one flamecaster even on later waves, so I tend to let her do so. Again, we've completed this wave well in advance of the timer, so we can treat ourselves to some hot dogging and grandstanding.
4,
I'm going to do my dance, which is called the stanky leg.
1.
Wave 4 features an illusory wind guard and a new mob, the illusory conqueror. The conqueror has 2 mechanics, the powerful slam and the enrage. Powerful slam is relatively easy to deal with. It's a frontal cone, so you just need to sidestep it. I found the best way to avoid it is to run diagonally forward. If your reactions are slow, like mine, it can be really helpful to tank these 2 mobs while sidestepping constantly. His second ability is an enrage. Weirdly, this can't be dispelled with soothe. However, provided you are using your pulverize and your iron fur, it's totally manageable without having to blow any cooldowns. You saw a banana tosser join the fight there. Just pick him up with a moonfire or a taunt and he'll come over and you can beat him up.
Four, 3, 2, 1.
Beware.
Wave 5 is another easy one. We're joined by a couple of rippers and a flamecaster. We're going to tank everything on top of the flamecaster. If we can manoeuvre the mobs into the flame pools, they'll die faster, but it's not at all necessary. If the wind guard is still up, positioning the mobs becomes harder due to the knockback. Again, the key thing is that you don't stand in the fire yourself. Illusory banana tossers join the fight during the second half of this wave, and they'll sit on your healer if you let them. I found the most effective way to deal with them is to let them run to your healer, then taunt them off her. This will mean they spend a lot of time running about, and less time doing damage. The healer's taken a bit of a pounding and there's no mobs up, so I'm just going to drop a couple of heals on her.
Four, 3, 2.
On paper, Wave 6 should be horrific. There are 3 wind guards, they all knock back, and they all hit like trucks. It sounds like a bit of a mare. However, Guardians have a talent which absolutely trivialises this wave, mass entanglement. As soon as the 3 wind guards pass the barriers, hit mass entanglement on the middle one, and watch as all 3 float around like divs. The middle one will always be the first to break, so pick him up and tank him. He'll knock you back occasionally, you'll taunt him, nice and easy. After about 30 seconds, you just reroute the one on the right and pick up the one on the left. Rinse and repeat. Simple. I'd forgotten to use my war scrolls, so you just saw me do that there. Wave 7 is relatively tough because there's a lot going on.
4,
I entered the wave with 2 wind guards still alive.
1.
When a conqueror and several foragers add themselves to the mix, your chances of surviving without a cooldown drastic go down. I used bark skin, which really helped me survive when I stood in the conqueror's shockwave. As you can see, the foragers are applying their stacking dot. Combined with the hard-hitting wind guards and the conqueror, it's all a bit of a pickle. To help with this, you should use the same kiting technique that we used on Wave 2. Use Stampeding Roar to create some distance, and then drag the whole pack through Ursol's Vortex. This will drop the forager dot stacks, and will give you a bit of breathing room from the harder hitting, larger mobs. Now the foragers have all died, it's really just a matter of staying out of the shockwave and dealing with the knockback. As mentioned earlier in the video, the best way to deal with the powerful slam is to run forward diagonally through it. I just ran away from it, which is pretty much the stupidest thing you can do.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Wave 8 is really easy. An illusory flamecaster will summon flame puddles. As always, don't stand in the fire. You'll be joined periodically by banana tossers. All you have to do is stand away from your healer and taunt them. They don't hit very hard, and they go down quickly even if they're not stood in the fire. This wave appears to be a test of whether you have a taunt button on your bars. It's a nice change of pace after the previous wave. I'm not doing the best job of positioning these banana tossers, but it's perfectly adequate and the DPS will be fine.
Four, 3, 2, 1.
Wave 9 is another nasty one due to the presence of 3 rippers and 2 wind guards. This wave not only hits hard, but it also means that you're dealing with 2 knockbacks. The best way to deal with this is to try to keep as many dots as possible on the wind guards, meaning a moonfire and 3 stacks of thrash. With a little luck, the dot ticks will generate enough threat to bring the wind guards running back to you before they have a chance to thump your healer. If you feel that the healer can't keep up, simply use the same kiting technique we used before. Hit Stampeding Roar and then kite the pack through Ursol's Vortex. This will give her a nice window to top you off. This wave also spawns banana tossers. As always, we just pick these up using Taunt or Moonfire to keep them away from the healer. Because you're trying to keep 3 stacks of thrash up on the wind guards, then it's best to use any other mob for your pulverise refreshes. Wave 10 is absolutely horrific, as the Flamecaller will pyroblast you into a pile of charred bear kebabs. Unless you have Mass Entanglement, which pretty much trivialises it. Simply hit Mass Entanglement on the Flamecaller when he spawns, and then run out of his range. Weirdly, it doesn't occur to him to nuke your healer. He'll just stand there looking like an absolute pillock. When the Conqueror enrages, remember to use Barkskin to take the edge off. Also, don't forget to sidestep his shockwave. An illusory banana tosser will also spawn about halfway through this wave. Pick him up using Moonfire or Growl. Shortly after the tosser spawns, your Mass Entanglement will wear off. Simply reapply it to the Flamecaller and then run back out of range.
Four, 3, 2, 1.
Now the Conqueror and the Banana Tosser are dead, we can focus our attention on the Flamecaller. Use Skull Bash to interrupt his casts where you can. You won't get them all.
4, 3, 2, 1.
At this point the cycle resets, so you'll now be on wave 11, or wave 21, or maybe even wave 31. If you're on wave 31, then you've completed the challenge. Well done. Friends, thank you for watching. Cheerio.